Because the signs of our times point to a struggle between absolutes, we may expect the future to be a time of trials and catastrophes for two reasons. Firstly, to stop disintegration. Godlessness would go on if there were no catastrophes. What death is to a sinful person, that catastrophe is to an evil civilization. The interruption of its godlessness. Why did God station an angel with a flaming sword at the Garden of Paradise after the fall, if it were not to prevent our first parents from entering the garden and eating of the tree of life, which, if they ate, would have immortalized their evil? God will not allow unrighteousness to become eternal. Revolution, disintegration, chaos must be reminders that our thinking has been wrong. Our dreams have been unholy. Moral truth is vindicated by the ruin that follows when it has been repudiated. The chaos of our times is the strongest negative argument that could ever be advanced for Christianity. Catastrophe becomes a testimony to God's power in a meaningless world, for by it, God brings a meaningless existence to naught. The disintegration following an abandonment of God thus becomes a triumph of meaning, a reaffirmation of purpose. Adversity is the expression of God's condemnation of evil, the registering of divine judgment. As hell is not sin, but the effect of sin, so these disordered times are not sin, but the wages of sin. Catastrophe reveals that evil is self-defeating. We cannot turn from God without hurting ourselves. The second reason why a crisis must come is in order to prevent a false identification of the church and the world. Our Lord intended that his followers should be different in spirit from those who were not his followers. I have taken you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. John 15:19. Though this is the divine intent, it is unfortunately true that the line of demarcation between the followers of Christ and those who are not is often blotted out. Instead of black and white, there is only a blur. Mediocrity and compromise characterize the lives of many Christians. Many read the same novels as modern pagans, educate their children in the same godless way, listen to the same commentators who have no other standard than judging today by yesterday and tomorrow by today, allow pagan practices such as divorce and remarriage to creep into the family. There are not wanting so-called Catholic labor leaders recommending communists for Congress, or Catholic writers who accept presidencies in communist front organizations to instill totalitarian ideas in movies. There is no longer the conflict and opposition which is supposed to characterize us. We are influencing the world less than the world influences us. There is no apartness. Well, indeed, might St. Paul say to us what he said to the Corinthians, "What has innocence to do with lawlessness? What is there in common between light and darkness? What harmony between Christ and Belial?" St. Paul is here asserting that those who were sent out to establish a center of health had caught the disease. Therefore, they lost the power to heal. Since the amalgamation of the Christian and the pagan spirit has set in, since the gold is married with an alloy, the entirety must be thrust into the furnace that the dross may be burned away. The value of the trial will be to set us apart. Evil must come to reject us, to despise us, to hate us, to persecute us, and then shall we define our loyalties, affirm our fidelities, and state on whose we stand. How shall the strong and weak trees be manifested unless the wind blows? Our quantity indeed will decrease, but our quality will increase. Then shall be verified the words of our Master, "He that gathereth not with me, scattereth." Matthew 12:30. These are times of troubles, and it is not so much a third world war that is to be feared as the rebirth of Leviathan, the coming of the day of the beast, when there will be no buying or selling unless men have been signed with the sign of the beast, who would devour the child of the mother of mothers. All great minds, non-Christian and Christian, see these days as perilous. Spengler believed that we are at the winter of civilization. Fisher at the death rattle of European civilization. Sorokin at the end of sensate culture. Berdyaev at the end of the days of reason, illuminated by faith. Marx at the collapse of capitalism. Lippmann at an hour when men feel it is no longer wise, necessary, or useful to pass on to succeeding generations the good Christian heritage of the past. Toynbee at the third stage of crisis in the Greek drama. The three stages are hubris, or pride, that came from material prosperity, showing itself in power. The second, nemesis, or arrogance, or contention against God, in which man arrogates to himself the attributes of deity. And finally, ate, or disaster, in which divine judgment will humble the vain pretension of men. Going back farther, Lord Grey, at the close of the First World War, said that the lights were being put out all over Europe, and they would not be lighted again in our generation. Before that, a great German poet and a Russian novelist warned people of the signs of the times. Writing in 1834, In Religion and Philosophy in Germany, Heine warned